Good day to you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome again to this week's edition of the Inside Out Effect podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Jakes, and I'm a DTO specialist, a neuro reboot technician, and I'm from the website healingthemind.co.uk. And beside me, as per usual, I've got the masterful and the talented and the bearded and the goggled Jonathan Shaw. Hello, Jonathan. How you doing?
What happened to the sweaty and sticky you were going to say? You left that out. I liked that because it is really hot.
Okay. So beside me, I've got the sweaty and the sticky and the lovely Jonathan Shaw.
There you go. It's better.
Now, Jonathan's a therapist. He's also founder of the Inside Out Effect project with myself. He's also the founder of Decoding Pain and the author of the book Decoding Pain, the emotional blueprint to healing chronic pain forever. And so today we're in a different environment. We're with the lovely Aisha, who we've just basically done a lovely photo shoot today.
Yep,
and
been
so
absolutely fantastic.
She's been absolutely marvellous.
Been a good laugh.
Yep, and so we're actually doing it from her studios here. There's some lovely photographs and absolute professionals. So we really, really recommend anybody who's thinking about having their photographs done by this lovely lady. She's masterfully talented, and so we'll be putting the information about her company and what she does and how to get in contact with her in the information box at the bottom. We've also got the Inside Out Effect website.
Yes, that's now live. Which is www.inside-outeffect.co.uk.
Yes.
That's now live and official, so if you want to go and check that out, you're more than welcome to.
We've got our events on there.
We've got our events on there. We've got several events coming up, and we've got several talks coming up on law of attraction. We've got a talk on a health and wellness day. And we've got our own 4-day workshop and a half-day workshop coming up as well.
Yep.
On using DTO, actually teaching the DTO system to get law of attraction to work for you, to heal traumas, past memories, to then evoke law of attraction and make that work for you. Yeah,
because ultimately it's those that block the things that we want to attract. And most people that are doing all of this and believing it or even practicing it or are new to it, the key thing to get it to work for you 100% to work for you is to remove the things that are blocking you, and that, funny enough, ties into what we're going to be talking about today. But anyway, so like I said, we're at the Aisha Goldberg photography studio. Thank you. And
you can't say it. You're right.
I can't say it.
Is there vodka in that water?
Yeah, it's top. It must be about 30 degrees in there.
It is what it must be, yeah, because I'm just drinking water by the gallon.
Yes. So, Aisha's website is www.ajg-photography.co.uk, and excellent, really, really good photographer. And she's given us the privilege of doing the podcast from my studio today. So, thank you very much, Aisha. And so, moving on. So, how's your week been? It's actually been a couple of weeks since we've done the podcast. We say we're going to do them every week. It seems to be fortnightly, but we have been very busy with workshops and stuff.
We have, yes. We've been super busy, and we didn't get a chance to do it last week. But we've both been really busy, haven't we? Lots of people. You've had a really busy week with clients, haven't you? Yeah,
the last couple of weeks has just gone crazy for me. So, and it's great. I'm so grateful because I'm really helping people on a massive scale.
So, share one big story you had this week that was really incredible. And tell them the story of the girl you helped recently, because that was incredible.
Yes, it was. And so I got a phone call from a lady. It was another client who I've been working with for the last few months. She met one of her clients, and her daughter's got really, really bad anxiety. I mean, to the point where if she sees a police car, hears a siren, she thinks the helicopter. If she sees a helicopter, she believes that they're out to get her. And so she's basically had a very, very, very tough time through her whole life from a very, very young age, with all sorts of terrible, terrible, terrible things that have happened to her. And I don't really want to talk about them too much, if you know what I mean. I think it's probably...
Don't go into graphic details.
No, details, no. But she's had a horrendous life. But anyway, so that's left her in a state of severe anxiety about everything. It affects her in her job. It affects her in her everyday life, walking down the street. And she basically, she just really can't function. And so they contacted me and said, could I help? And I said, yep, come along. I've been really successful in the past with people with anxiety. And anyway, she turned up, and I told her, I'd done my little spiel about how the mind works and how the process works. And we sat down just about to start doing the job. And bless her, she started. And she's only 21, but she's just like one of these. She's just such a delicate, soft soul. She's like. she's just so endearing and she's so mild, and she was like, I'm really scared, and I was like, oh. Anyway, so then before we even started, I had to switch off the anxiety, because literally before it even started, she started getting really tearful. She's like, I'm really anxious now. So I switched that off, and then she realised what could happen.
Yeah.
And once I switched off the anxiety of that moment, we went back and I cleared everything in relation to the anxiety of seeing the police, hearing the sirens, looking at a police officer. She had all of the different things about being really, really scared about. One of them was she sees herself being put in prison for something she hasn't done.
Yeah. She's
also in prison. Sees herself being in prison, and she's trapped and she can't escape, and she gets left alone. And so she's got this huge, massive fear and anxiety about the police, being arrested for something she hasn't done. There was just so much running with it. But fortunately enough, I was able to remove all of that, of the whole. So I switched off all and removed all of the beliefs and switched off all the anxiety around that one specific issue around anxiety in about 50 minutes.
Brilliant. Fantastic.
So, and when she left, I mean, even her mother was sitting in on it, which I don't normally do, but on this occasion I did because of her age and the severity of the anxiety, her mum.
Yeah.
And I think she's been having treatment since the age of 7. She's now 21. They've done everything. They're doing everything all the time, and they've just not got anywhere. No improvement in anything.
Yeah.
So that's 14 years of doing stuff because it's been that bad for her.
Yes.
And not got anywhere. And in 50 minutes, I've already made a big hole in it.
Brilliant.
A massive hole in it. I've already switched off all of that anxiety. And her mum also said to me, like, how she just couldn't believe the change that she saw in her at the moment of it. And I could just see it. All of a sudden, her body just went into relaxation and just drooped, and she just let go of that. And it was just such an amazing thing for me. I got so emotional inside. I mean, I was torn. I was in one scale, I was just really ecstatic, because there's some people that you really, really, really feel for them because of what they've been through and how they currently are. And she's just a really mild soul as well. And it just seems such an injustice. And so, but also, I got quite emotional by seeing her now losing that. I got quite sort of nearly went into tears myself. But also at the same time, I felt amazing.
Yeah.
I remember I drove to you yesterday, and all the way to you driving yesterday, I was just sitting like smiling. What did I say it was like yesterday? Like saving a puppy from drowning.
Saving a puppy from drowning, Which was a really weird analogy.
But that's what it felt like for me. It was just like, can you imagine saving a puppy from drowning? It was just like, that was the feeling I had for doing it for this girl.
But she would have felt like she was drowning under all that emotional response, because a lot of people do. They just drown under the severe emotional response they're having, or the overwhelm or the panic. It does just feel like you are drowning, and you can't swim, you can't get out of it, and you're just being sucked under constantly.
Yeah.
So to be able to release that for her, or part of that, in a very short space of time, that traditionally is not possible, and people don't believe it's possible. So often, if I have mums stay in when I'm treating, they have the same look on their face when their daughter or their child changes before their very eyes. It is almost like magic, because they see the change happen literally instantaneously, and no one is taught that that's actually possible. So often people just suffer until they find.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many Facebook groups out there that I follow and keep an eye on, especially all the mental health ones, and especially some of these, these healing gurus that we've got out there that are claiming that you can just sit and shut your eyes and heal yourself. All of the position that they come from is that what we do is impossible.
Yes, the traditional therapy is limited in the way it views how quick you can solve things, and it takes time. And I myself had that limiting belief many years back. I actually got stuck in that belief because I was trained traditionally as well. Yeah. So when I came up with DTO, I was surprised at how fast it was, and I actually did not believe how fast DTO was myself until I'd done it lots. Yeah. When I did it on myself, I didn't believe what I'd just done was possible. So I understand why traditional therapy doesn't believe it, but at the same time it is possible because we do it every single day. It's a little bit like lots of beliefs we have. When people said you can't run a mile in under a minute, they said you'd explode. But actually, when Roger Bannister did it, then later that year, 11 other people did it.
Didn't run a mile under a minute.
He run 4
minutes.
4 minutes, or whatever it was.
I'll tell you what, if someone did run a mile under 4 minutes, they probably would explode, mate.
Whatever he did in under a minute, whatever it was, he was told he couldn't do it. And then that year, 11 people did the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like we all have beliefs that are then proved untrue later on. And this is one of those things, it is very simple often to switch things off very quickly. You can't always switch the whole thing off very quickly. You can switch one part of it off very quickly and switch all the other parts off gradually over a period of time, and then it goes. But you can switch memories and parts of the problem very, very quickly. I had a lovely young girl come and see me. She's only 19, bless her, suffering anxiety and OCD. And just the first block that she had was she couldn't close her eyes. So for what we do, we get people to close their eyes so they can focus and concentrate. And I actually had to switch that off for her first. And not being able to close her eyes was actually affecting her sleep. It was one of the triggers for her that affected her sleep. And we literally switched that off literally in a couple of minutes. So within 4 or 5 minutes, she could close her eyes and be quite comfortable. That for her was miraculous, because just that alone made a massive difference to her life. We've carried on and switched off other things, and she started to relax and feel happier, and she doesn't quite get as angry, and she's noticing the changes. But traditionally she's done so much counselling that wasn't possible for her. She's actually done 3 lots of counselling, and traditionally that is not possible. That's not how it happens. But very, very quickly, short space of time, we're switching off her triggers, and she's getting better and better and better.
Yeah, that brings me back really, because I've had 3 or 4 new people this week that have come to see me. I obviously tell them what I know and how the brain works and how emotions are formed and blah, blah, blah. So I do like a little 40, 30 minute story just so they can understand what I'm about to do.
Yeah.
Right? And nearly every single one of them will say at that point, because of obviously the other therapies they've had and all the other counselling, that what I'm doing isn't... So as soon as I start doing it, in their head they're saying, how's this going to work? This ain't going to work.
No.
Every single one of them said, well, when you first started doing it, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, how the hell is this going to do it?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden...
It changes.
All of a sudden when you got rid of that first guilt and it's gone, and their subconscious goes, oh my God, this works. And then they want to get it out as quick as they can.
Yeah.
But all of them, every single person, obviously all been really successful. I've not, again, like I said, I've not failed with anyone so far with what we do. But in their initial responses, how the hell is this going to do it?
Yeah.
Because they've got this mindset that you need to have PhDs and you need to be a specialist in counselling and you need to be an expert to understand the brain in order to solve or heal the problems. That's causing the problem.
Well, the main belief is you have to understand the problem.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest things. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're talking about sabotage and beliefs.
Yes.
And one of the biggest beliefs that cause problems is you need to understand why you have the problem. This is a complete myth. It's complete nonsense. You cannot understand the problem when you have it. The only way to actually understand it is to switch it off, and then you can see the truth behind it. And so many people try and understand it, and all they do is go around in circles. They go inside their head, they try and analyse why it's there, they try and think about where it might have come from, or why they think that way, or why they feel that way. They try and change it in their brain as well, because they can't accept it. So they then try and change it in their head, even though it's happened in the past, and they can't really change it. And they go round and round in circles and get stuck on a loop of not understanding why. But the understanding, the genuine understanding, will only come when you let go of how you feel and switch off the feelings. Once you do that, your unconscious will go, oh, that's why it happened. Got it.
Yeah.
And then you'll feel better and move on. But the traditional theory is you've got to do it the other way round.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't work. But I see it constantly all day long. I had a guy come and see me, and he's been struggling for ages, and he was recommended to me. Just a really general, down-to-earth bloke, big bloke, normal bloke, works in a normal company, he's not spiritual or healer or anything like that, and he's been struggling for ages, and he was open to the idea, but he just really didn't really think anything could help him. And within the first session, we'd switched off one of the big things that was bothering him, and like you said, when that first guilt vanished from his brain, he was like, oh my God, where's that gone?
Yeah, where's that gone?
Where's that gone? What's happened? And he then did what everyone does, which I love. They search for it.
That's what he does.
You can see them searching for it in their brain.
Yes.
And they're trying to find it, and then they try and bring it back. And I said, look, you can go and test this as much as you like, mate. I want you to test it. Go away, you test this. You will not be able to get this back.
It's so funny you should say that. One of my friends, even now my friends are reaching out to me, which is amazing, because that's when you know that you've cracked it, is when your people that you've grew up with or know you from your past are now banging on your door.
Yeah.
So one of my old mates, from my team from before. I was about 16, 17. I used to knock around with this guy. Anyway, he's reached out to me. 30 years I hadn't seen him for. But anyway, he's reached out to me. He said, I've been listening to your podcast and it's amazing what you're doing. So anyway, I cleared a big thing for him. Yeah. Right? And I said, look, you don't have to go, because normally, obviously, clients come and go. I said, no. I said, look, it's really good to see you, mate. I said, come and let's have a quick coffee and have a little catch-up. It was like late at night. It was about 9:30 at night. It was the last client. And anyway, so it was so funny. And I just want to get to this. So while I was asking him questions and talking to him, he would start answering or telling me what he was doing. And then in the middle of the conversation, he'd stop. And I'd see his eyes just drifting off to the left, right, where I'd know he'd gone back into his head, trying to find the thing that I'd literally just switched off. And then he'd come back into the room and he'd go, I can't find it. I said, he goes, this is mad, it's not there. I'm like, I know, Rob, I know, I've told you that's what you've done. And then he would carry on talking, and then he would stop. And then he'd go back into his head again, off in a little daydream, trying to find the thing. And it's so funny, and they do that.
It's really funny to watch people do it. And I did it the first time as well. The first time I did discover this, I did that exact thing. I'd close my eyes, I'd put this belief in my head about a past relationship of mine, and within a few seconds it had gone. And I literally opened my eyes and searched.
Yeah.
I did the same thing, and I was searching in my brain trying to find this belief.
I still do it.
Yeah.
Even when we work together and we will clear something, maybe you know.
Yeah.
I will still go and check and say, I don't know why. I don't know. It's just a natural thing to do.
It's a natural thing to do, because you just can't believe it happens.
But some people
it does.
Some people do it like epically.
They really
will just
try.
like stop in the middle of a conversation and just drift off and go like into the world of their own, and then they like go, oh, it's not there, and they come back to the conversation and go, it's not there, and like you were just in the middle of saying something, like it's like it's great. It's really, really great. So anyway, so that's really good. So really, this really brings on to the whole body of the podcast.
Okay, before we get to the body of the podcast,
yes,
I have a big announcement to make. Very, very important. Although Stephen, my friend, my colleague,
I'm glad you didn't say lover.
I was about to say lover. I paused and I thought, you know what? People might actually take us seriously, and we're not ready to come out yet, so let's not do that.
Yeah.
But no, a very important announcement. Although Steve has been doing DTO for quite a few months, and he's very, very good at it, I am very, very strict about who I actually qualify as a DTO practitioner, and I require a lot of work for someone to put in for them to become an official qualified DTO practitioner. And I'm happy and thrilled to announce that Stephen is actually the second level 1 DTO practitioner. I qualified on Saturday, last Saturday.
No, it was Saturday.
Last Saturday, at the end of a law attraction talk.
Yep.
And you didn't know anything about it.
I didn't.
I surprised you with it. But how did you feel?
I was taken back because obviously I don't. I mean, I do. It's really weird because in my past I did everything for me. Everything was for me. It was about me. It was everything had to be about. What can I get out of it? Where am I going? It's all about me.
Yeah.
And then obviously you know my past and what's happened to me, the massive traumas and the disappointments and the betrayals and all the money that's been stolen and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So now I do this to help other people. So. It was a bit of a shock, really, because I do this to help other people, and that's why I've worked so hard, because I know it works. But so they did take me, and it was. I felt it was the first time that I actually got a realisation of my journey and what I've been doing, and it sort of cemented it in for me, really, and really has made it worthwhile, because my focus is so on other people and fixing and helping them that you forget where you've come from and where you're going. And it was a really nice thing, and it's made me feel really. It's made me feel like it was all been worthwhile, you know, and I formulated a great teamwork, a great friendship with you, and you're helping me even going on to greater things. So I'm really grateful. It was a really, really nice touch. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, you deserve it, mate. You've taken it into your heart. You've helped me move it forward. You've helped so many people. I'm only one man. I can only help so many people.
Yeah.
You've helped so many more people, and I think you've done amazing work with it.
Thank you, mate.
You deserve it.
Great. Well, onwards and upwards, and hopefully we'll have a lot more people to help in the future come forward.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so let's get to the podcast body. So this is episode 12. This is about sabotage. And in particular, we're going to talk about what causes and creates our sabotage. And in particular, it really boils down to 3 things, really, isn't it? Or maybe 4. So you've got your guilt responses, your shames, your loans responses, and your beliefs. And they're probably the main 4 that I would say are consistently sabotaging people and their emotional well-being or their mental health. So
yes,
let's go there. And so I know that you obviously, you're big on this, and you've helped me with what I come to realise, that most of my problems have been us sabotaging what we do, and every time we get anything good, we sabotage it, or if we have a good relationship, we sabotage it. So let's go into a little bit more detail, dissect it, and allow the listeners and the people that are listening to actually maybe get a grasp of it and how it's impacting their life.
Okay, so the biggest sabotage is literally guilt and shame, and the beliefs that we all have, they literally generally are generated from guilt and shame that are sabotages anyway. But the guilt and shame is the root. So sometimes we know what we feel guilty and ashamed about, but often we don't, because guilt and shame is underneath all the anger, the resentment, the bitterness, the injustice, the betrayal, and we don't often know it's there, but actually we're feeling guilty and ashamed. And the problem with that is that when we feel guilt and ashamed about something, we then feel like we don't deserve, we're not good enough, we shouldn't, we're bad, we're wrong. And so that when good things do happen to us, we can sabotage it, and we can create bad things happening to us. And these are a lot of the belief systems that people have, and they don't realise they're doing it. In fact, one of the beliefs that came up on the law of attraction training when we did it was one lady's beliefs was that you have to have balance. So when something good happens, something bad happens.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And we stopped and we looked at her and said, "Did you hear what you just said?" And she kind of looked, and she didn't quite get it to begin with, and then she suddenly dawned on her that belief is actually causing bad things to happen when they don't actually need to. We're not saying bad things don't happen. What we're saying is a lot of people...
It's not on the premise that it only happens after you've had something good happen.
That's right, yes. It shouldn't be on the premise that something bad has to happen when something good's happened.
Yeah.
And that belief actually draws more things to her. But underneath that will be some guilt and shame about... You can have guilt and shame about having a happy, positive life. You could feel guilt and shame about having a smooth life when your friends around you are having a traumatic life. You can feel guilty and shamed about being happy when one of your friends is miserable. You can feel guilt and shame about something you did in the past that you feel really bad about, and what it does is it keeps you creating negativity in your current world. I have a client at the moment, and she's been very challenging. She's absolutely lovely, and she desperately wants to get better, and I know that because she keeps turning up for the sessions. But her sabotage is stopping her from letting go of something that happened to her in the past. Very traumatic event that happened to her in the past, and she feels so guilt and ashamed about it that she wasn't letting it go. And she's actually causing so much negativity in her current life because of the shame and guilt about the past. And it's taken us a while because she was very stuck to move her forwards. But she is now finally letting go of it and moving forwards. But all it was doing was creating lots of negativity in her life. And she literally believed she deserved to be punished and didn't deserve to be happy. And this is a big thing. The guilt and shame often creates the belief we don't deserve to be happy. And so then we put an upper limit on the amount of happiness we will accept in our lives.
Yes.
And once we reach that upper limit, so if we're happy for one day and we're joyful, the next day we might sabotage that and cause something negative to happen.
Do you know what? I used to do that all the time.
Yep, it's very common.
I used to do it all the time.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the saying, you have good days and bad days.
That's it. Good days and bad. Another typical belief system.
Another belief system, yeah.
Good days and bad days.
Yeah.
And we want to point out that these are actually just beliefs. I know some people may be going through things right now and going, well, yeah, that's what happened to me. It's just life.
It's experience.
It's just life. That's what Well, you've experienced it because something happened when you were younger, and now you're carrying that belief over and over and over again, and you're replaying it. And I know that's very difficult to take in, but the reason we're pointing this out is because we don't want you to suffer. We actually want people better. We're pointing this out for a reason. And we have a lot of people come to us and they are in that mindset of, well, it's just good things happen, bad things happen.
Have good days, bad days. Life is just life, you know.
Like, that's just like, yeah, and actually that's not strictly true. There are people out there who are living happy, peaceful lives. Yes, not everything is smooth. They have griefs in life, they have life situations, but they're not constantly creating drama or negativity in their life. So if you are one of these people who's got lots of drama in your life, you've got lots of negative things happening, then that can actually be changed. It's just because something's happened when you were younger and you've developed a belief system, or you're running a lot of guilt and shame about something and you're just drawing negative situations to you.
So I just want to add out that we know, and I say this to absolutely everybody that comes into to my clinic or my home, and I work with them. One of the first things I tell them is all beliefs drive behaviours.
Yes.
Okay. So we know that is a fact. But here's the thing. if you're feeling guilty, you now believe you're guilty.
Yes, that's right.
If all beliefs drive behaviours and you believe you're guilty, you now behave guilty.
Yeah, you now behave
so
that way.
the guilt is the belief.
Yeah.
The belief drives the behaviour.
Yeah.
So by holding on to the guilt and believing it, you behave guilty.
Yeah.
You keep behaving guilty.
Yeah, and one of the false beliefs is that we have, one of the false beliefs is that you have to hold on to your guilt to make you a good person.
Yeah.
But it actually doesn't. It drives more bad behaviour.
Yes.
It actually doesn't make you a good person by holding guilt and shame. It actually makes you do things that aren't who you really are, not the way you want to be or behave, but you keep doing them.
Yeah.
And then you feel even more guilty and ashamed, and it goes around in circles, and you can end up becoming someone really different.
I speak to a lot of people, or I have a lot of people come to me, and in part of their life, they've sort of been unfaithful in their relationship. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, what they come to, because I say to people, you don't know what your problem is. You think you know what your problem is, it isn't. And when you get into it, you realise the problem is the guilt. So what happens is they've been unfaithful in a relationship for whatever reason, whether it's right or wrong, it's time here nor there. But at the point that they do that and they feel guilty, then they have a continuous pattern of being unfaithful.
That's right. That's what it does.
Because it's the guilt that keeps them making it do it over and over again.
Yeah.
Now, what I've noticed is when you go and switch that off, categorically, they no longer do it anymore. They're no longer holding that guilt anymore.
That's right.
And they tend not to do it.
No.
And so in that instance, when you've actually got rid of the guilt of that moment, that all of a sudden they change and now they can see why they kept doing it.
Yes.
But while they've got the guilt, they're never ever going to see it because it's the belief that they need to be guilty, and because beliefs drive behaviours, they'll behave more guilty and keep on doing it.
They behave in ways that are bad and wrong.
Yeah.
Because that guilt is they're almost proving to themselves they are that person.
Yeah.
It's not solving a problem. That's one of the biggest false beliefs, that guilt and shame actually stops you doing things wrong. It doesn't. It makes you do more wrong things. So the only way to stop it is to switch the guilt and shame off. However, the biggest problem with guilt and shame is it will sabotage you from getting the right help in the first place. Yeah. Now, I see this daily, and what I see is that people when they recognise someone who can actually help them, if they feel so guilt and ashamed they don't deserve help, they will run away from the people who can help them, and they will go towards people and therapists they know won't help them, that will only help make them feel better briefly, but they know it's not going to solve the problem. Anyone that they come up against which they really feel could really change them, the guilt and shame will override it and make you get really scared and run away unconsciously. It's not a conscious response, it's a total unconscious response.
Yeah, and what they do is they keep on doing the thing that doesn't work.
That's right. They'll keep on doing the thing that over and over again that's maintaining the problem.
Yeah.
But only because, it's down to two reasons. It could be guilt and shame, or it could be the fact that they're just not having the right therapy and they don't know that.
Yes, there is that.
There is that one as well, and that is a big problem because people don't know what therapy to have for what problem. But sometimes we see people, and it is just their guilt and shame running their unconscious mind, preventing them from seeking out the right person. And the thing about that is, once you let go of your guilt and shame, law of attraction would kick in and attract the right person to you. And that's the beauty of that. But you have to kind of recognise you do want to do it at that moment in time.
Yeah. I think the other thing as well is what people really need to become aware of is that everyone's got guilt and shame.
Everyone
a whole life.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we don't. The problem is that when we experience that guilt and shame, we're also formulating a belief.
Yes.
With it.
Yes.
Oh, well, I done that. I don't deserve. So, here's a great one. So, there's a lady coming to see me at the moment. She was unfaithful in her first relationship. She said to me this. Ever since I've been unfaithful, everybody's been crapping on me, and it's karma.
No, yes, not karma.
It's karma.
No.
It's my karmic payback because I done it to them. Now I'm expecting it back to me.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening.
Yes.
But it's the belief of that's creating the behaviour towards her, and she's allowing it. So
that's right. Because you believe it's karma.
It's the guilt and shame.
But actually, if you switch the guilt and shame off, that will stop. One of the biggest beliefs that I've never really had is karma, and that's great. But unfortunately, there are bad people out there who don't have anything bad happen to them.
Yeah.
So where's the karma? Well, it's not that. They just don't feel guilty about something. Now,
energetically as well, you might want to talk about that when you're running that, what you attract.
Yeah, when you're running that guilt and shame, you're vibrating a negative energy. You're vibrating a really negative response, an angry, a a fearful response, and that will drag negativity to you.
Yeah, well, it will also trigger anger, resentment, jealousy, hate. So every time you have one of these feelings where you'll get angry, or you're getting despondent, or you're just throwing your toys out your pram, or whatever it is, or you're resentful, whatever, I guarantee you underneath that will be guilt.
Yeah, it was underneath it. Guilt or shame underneath that every single time. And the way to just change that is to just switch it off. I know that I was creating a lot of problems in my life through guilt and shame. Some of the things I felt guilty about, I was just creating so many problems just because I felt guilty and ashamed about things. And it was, once I switched that off, those problems sort of vanished and disappeared.
Yeah, well, here's a great thing. Well, I don't like to talk about me, but we did a treatment for myself on Monday. Last Monday.
Yes.
And I think that there's a lot of stuff around my old business partner, and the people that I would say worked with me but worked against me.
Yeah.
But those guys, so I mean, I think we only did a little session, but I reckon we just focused on the guilts and shames around that and all the shames around it, and I reckon we must have had 15.
Yeah, it was quite. Yes,
about 15. Yeah. So the point I'm making is that it's all those things that were causing all my problems and me holding on to it.
Just
all of those things, all those guilts and shames around that. So when you realise that's happening in just one area of your life in your past, think about that.
Yeah.
You know, going all the way back and how many of those you've got running. And fundamentally, going back to what you're saying, is you're vibrating on that guilt. Yeah, you're vibrating guilt.
Yeah.
You're vibrating that guilt, and therefore you also got those beliefs. And this is what's also going to stop you having or attracting the things in law of attraction as well.
Yeah.
And also it's going to stop you from having anything happy in your life because you will sabotage it.
Yeah. And the guilt and shame, it kind of falls into two categories. It can be something real or something false. So you can feel guilty and ashamed about something you've actually done. So you know that you've done it and society would deem that as wrong. But you can equally feel guilty and ashamed about something that you haven't actually done, you just perceive you've done. And I kind of have, a couple of stories relate to that. So I've treated all types of problems, from very severe things, people who have been really violent, people who have actually killed people who have actually been abused, people who have stolen things, people have done all kinds of crimes, and I will actually get them to forgive themselves and get rid of shame and guilt, because I know that if they don't,
they're going to do it again.
They're going to repeat the process. Now, they know they've done something wrong technically. Society says, well, you shouldn't be doing that. And I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not disagreeing that, hurting someone is wrong. But carrying the guilt and shame will actually will cause a problem and make them repeat the behaviour. But I have one client who believes that she murdered her mother at 4 years old because she ran at her mum with something in her hand and hit her mum with it. Now, her mum looked at her and laughed. And her mum was alive for another 20 years afterwards. She died of old age, natural causes. She did not cause any harm to her mother whatsoever. But she's believed since she was 4 years old that she murdered her mother at that time. Now, it's not real because her mum was alive for 20 years. But that guilt and shame of that, and there were so many of them, she's now coming out of it, so many of them that caused her to beat herself up so much and punish herself that she did not deserve anything because she really believed that at 4 years old she'd murdered her mother. Now, even logically, she could not look at it and go, well, I didn't do it, because even though she knew her mum lived for another 20 years, she still couldn't look at it logically and go, I didn't do it. Her emotional response was so high. So we can have guilt and shame about perceptions of things that we haven't actually done. When people blame us for things, when people say always blaming us and they're always putting blame on you, we then feel bad if we're good people. The problem with that is that when someone blaming, they're not really taking responsibility for their part in it either. Yeah. And that's not good. Whenever there's two people have a problem, you both have the problem. You're both running an energy about it. It's not just one side or another. It's both of you. And you both have to take responsibility. When someone is blaming you, they're just projecting their stuff onto you. So you don't need to feel guilty about it. But we do as good human beings.
Yeah, that's what it is. So they're running the guilt.
Yes, they're in the guilt.
So then they push it on you and try and make you push it on you, and then they think they've got some victory. See, I told you it was you, but really,
and you feel really bad about it because you
know that you just don't.
Because you question it and you go around in circles, but actually they're projecting just all of their stuff on you. Now, I'm not saying you didn't play a part in it, but the part of guilt that we take on then is then their guilt we're taking on. We're not taking on our own stuff.
That's right.
So there's things that we have done and things we haven't done, and sometimes the perception of what we've done when we haven't can be very severe, like the lady that I told you, and it can feel very, very real. And then there's the story of the lady who I told you who did do something in her past life, that it was an action she took, and she beats herself up about it because the way she was raised, it was wrong and you don't do that, and she's been suffering forever. But not only is she suffering, she knows that her 2 children now are suffering, and her friends around her are suffering because she can't cope emotionally. She's become a wreck a lot of the time, and she's aware of that. But she's fighting the sabotage to come on the session every time, which is great. That's not pushing away. She really wants to be free of it. She was just really stuck, but we are getting through it now and moving through it.
Yeah, so I think one way, was a good way. I just want the viewers to connect with sabotage, because some people might listen to this and not realise it. But for example, it's when you're sitting at home and you're sitting there thinking, do you know what? I really. You get in them, I'm going to go and join the gym. I'm going to go and do that. I really, really want to go and join the gym. I deserve to do it. I need to get fit. I'm not doing any exercise. And then all of a sudden, you just find loads of reasons not to do it.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Right? You go, well, it's late.
Yeah.
I need something to eat. It's a bit like procrastinating.
It's procrastination is guilt and shame underneath it. That's what it is. Yeah.
Shame,
So people think they're being lazy. No, it's just guilt and shame.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want people to realise that every time that you aren't having integrity to yourself, when you say you're going to do something and then not do it, chances are that sits underneath it is guilt and shame.
It does every single time. People. Yeah.
And then what we'll do is we'll make up a load of nonsense.
Yeah.
Of why we don't do it.
Yeah,
we'll just make up shit. Just make up shit. And then we'll believe that shit we've made up.
Yeah.
And then now you're behaving in that way.
That's right.
But it's all fantasy. It's all fairy tales.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's amazing how the unconscious works. And, I've treated procrastination as we're talking about that. And underneath that, it actually has nothing to do with... The guilt and shame is not about what you're trying to do. It might be a guilt and shame about being successful.
Yeah.
Or it might be a guilt and shame about failing if you get it wrong. Or if you don't succeed in it. Yeah. It's not normally about the little action you're trying to take at the time. It has nothing to do with being lazy. People think, I'm just lazy. No, it's not. And no one is actually lazy. It's just there's guilt, so much guilt and shame underneath. We just don't know it exists.
Yeah, what happens is it's really, really successful, and then it might mean that I'm really happy. Well, I don't deserve to be happy.
Exactly. That's
a sabotage.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. And I say that's one of the biggest ones. People these days feel they don't deserve to be happy. And that comes from...
I get so many... Sorry, mate.
Sorry.
Go on.
No.
I get so many. So I don't deserve it. I'm not worth it. I'm not good enough.
Yeah, very, very common.
All of the time, nearly everyone will come to me and say, "Well, why don't you think you can be happy?" Well, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Well, I don't deserve it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just not good enough. Well, why are you not good enough? Well, I'm not good enough. I get so many people. Nearly 80% of my people that will come up.
And the not good enough and the not deserving usually comes from something you've done in the past. You feel guilty about. It's actually something you've done that deep down was wrong. Like we often feel guilty. A lot of my clients, they feel guilty about the way they broke up with someone or breaking up with someone. They feel bad about doing that, or they feel guilty because they hurt someone in the past. So they're carrying all that guilt and shame, and what it does, it causes them to hurt more people in the future because they're still running that program. But that lack of deserving usually comes from things that we've actually done, where an action we took that we know technically was wrong, or we hurt somebody. Yeah. And again, you've got to switch that off, because it will just drive that behaviour in the future. You'll just do it more and more. Yeah. And that's what I see every single day. And that's what was happening with me as well. I was doing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a big misunderstanding. When you actually know how the brain forms and what's really going on, you've got to realise that there's a part of your brain that from the day you're born to the day you die is on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, year after year after year, and it records everything.
What about Christmas Day?
Well, for some people, it might not. They might switch off.
I thought it was.
But it's running. But anyway, it's running all the time, and it's recording everything.
What about
it records
Pancake Day?
everything. No, I think it's off that day. So it's 363 days.
63 days, yeah.
Days,
so Christmas Day and Pancake Day it might be off, but the other days it's definitely on.
That's it. That's why it explains why I'm not guilty for eating pancakes.
That's why I don't feel guilty for receiving presents from Santa either. It's brilliant.
It's great, but that's running all the time, and And now I've completely forgot what I was going to talk about.
You were saying that there's a part of the brain
I know,
that is on constantly all the time.
I forgot the point.
You forgot the point?
Yeah.
Maybe there wasn't a point. Maybe you're just rambling.
There was a good point.
There was a point. Sorry, mate. Yes. I had to ruin your point.
Yeah.
Wait, come back to it later on. You'll remember it in a minute.
I will do.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's right. So, so when we have the guilts and shames, your brain's recording everything from the day you're born to the day you die. And like I said, so what happens is that people don't realise that all those things that they've done in the past, bad things, or where they've hurt somebody, or they've stolen something, or they've done something wrong, or whatever, their subconscious knows that.
Yes.
And it's all hardwired neurologically. It's all recorded, because when you've had an emotional response to an event, you get like an emotional timestamp.
Yeah.
You get this emotional timestamp in your brain every time you have an emotional response to an event. So every time you do that and you feel guilty or do something, it's in there. And they're the things that later on in life that's why we start getting worse and worse and worse, I believe, over a period of time. Because we do more things, we have more guilt, we have more shames, and it sort of slows you down, and you do less and less and less, and you start feeling worse and worse and worse because it's all of those things. But here's the thing, is that when you come and see a specialist that can do this and can go back and switch off all of those guilts and shames from all of those past behaviours or beliefs or things you've made up, or guilt socially, for example, you didn't give something to Blue Peter because of bring and buy sale, and you know, or whatever it is, from when you were a kid. When you actually can go back and switch them off, your life instantly and dramatically improves. And you get more energy and you start doing more things, and you're no longer feeling that I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it anymore in your life.
That's right. No,
so, the point I'm making, you can't escape your past, but actually you can switch it off.
You switch it off. You're not switching off the past, you're switching off how you feel about the past. Yes. You're switching off the way you feel about the past.
Yeah.
You can't change what's happened. You have to accept what's happened and move on. But you can't always do it logically. You have to switch off the emotional response and the belief about the past. And then what happens is your body heals, your mind heals, you become happier, more peaceful, you become more successful, you make more money, and people actually get younger. Yeah. They actually reverse aging. It's really amazing.
It's up to me.
Yeah, Steve's got much younger since I've known him. And people do. You see the change almost instantaneously. Yeah. Their skin feels better. They feel more energised. Their body lets go of all the toxins. They pee more things out and let go of crap. Yeah. And so then the body heals. And so you look younger, because the age that most people are is not really the age they are. They shouldn't be looking as old as they are. It's just because of all the stress, all of the guilt, the shame that's weighing down.
Well, there's also the nonsense beliefs as well. And all the beliefs that people have formulate through their everyday life, the people they meet, the people they speak to, what they're fed on the news, blah, 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 blah. But that also contributes, because once you have all these beliefs that actually take you away from the problem, you're sort of stuck in a belief that keeps you away from the problem, and the problem could never be solved or healed.
Yes, that's one of the biggest problems. We all have really weird beliefs that actually keep us in a fear, a suffering, or a victim mentality.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if this is the way to check whether something is working for you, whether a belief you have is working, is ask yourself, is what I'm believing keeping me in fear, keeping me suffering, or keeping me in a victim mentality? If it is, it's not working, it's not right, it's just going to keep you stuck. So, a typical belief system that I see all the time, people with neck pain, is, it's just my pillow. Well, no, it's not really, because you slept on that pillow for how many years? It's the same, or the mattress is the mattress. Well, you've had that mattress for how many years? Yeah. No, it's not the mattress and pillow. I've had this loads of times with people, and it's never the mattress and pillow ever. But they then buy into that. So that belief now keeps them suffering, because unless they change it, but they'll still have the neck pain if they change it. They also suffer because they spend more money to buy a new pillow or mattress, and doesn't put you into a victim
mentality as well.
Yeah, you're now a victim to it because you can't solve the problem, because you might buy another pillow or mattress, might make it feel a bit better, but the pain's still there.
Yeah. And so you're a victim financially, you're a victim from the other aspects of health. So
in that case, you've got a suffering victim mentality. If you just stop that and go, wait a minute, something's wrong with my neck, I need to look at that and get it sorted by someone and fix it. There's a guy in Australia, and he had neck pain when he came on to me. We was doing business stuff, but he had neck pain, and he just said, it's just because I pulled it the other day, mate. And he was having physio for it. Well, in about an hour, I switched that off for him. So the pain wasn't there. This was a few weeks ago. And his neck felt a lot better. Another lady of mine, I was helping her with her neck and shoulder pain. We got rid of all of that. But then all of a sudden one day she pulled her back in the garden. And even though I'd got rid of her chronic neck and shoulder pain, because this was technically an injury, she went off the chiropractor. Now, she had a session booked with me a few days later, but she'd been to chiropractor and he'd kind of helped a little bit, but she was still in agony. And within about an hour, 30, 40 minutes actually, I'd switched most of that pain off. And she couldn't believe it. She couldn't, even though I'd fixed her chronic pain, she couldn't correlate. I could do the same thing with an injury, because in her brain, an injury was different. And that's another big problem. We believe all this nonsense, and we don't know it's nonsense because we've heard it for so long. And we just believe
and also, logically, it sort of makes sense.
Yeah,
which is what I want to move on to about beliefs.
Yes.
Because there's a whole load that I get addressed to me. I see it on YouTube, I see it on Facebook, I hear it from people, and I used to have these myself. So that's how I know that these don't work.
Yeah.
So, for example, the number one thing is that people will come home from work and what they'll do is they'll be sitting watching the TV, they'll be watching EastEnders or, and Deck or whatever, and they've got their glass of wine because obviously they like wine, they're not, they haven't got anything running that makes them want to move away, but they need to change the state. Yeah. But what will happen is that they'll sit there and they'll go, do you know what? Oh, I'm really unhappy. I've had enough. My life ain't working. I ain't earning enough money. I hate my job and my life's not working. And they'll feel really, really crap and they'll feel really, really down and they don't like that feeling. And they feel, I need to do something. I want to do something about my life, right?
Yeah.
So what they do is they go, and this is the thing. Now they've got this emotional response. What they're going to do is they make up shit. So now they go, oh, I know what I need to do. If I go to the gym, right, and I start doing exercise and I start feeling better about myself, all of a sudden, all this stuff that I've got is going to make me better. And they go, do you know what? So they believe that. All belief drive behaviours. So the behaviour is they go and sign up to the gym.
So you go and pay a membership.
Go and pay for a membership. Now, the next night, they're down there. They're all in the thing. Oh, hello, mate. How you doing? Yeah, great. Oh, no, I'm really brilliant, actually. And you're on this high because you think you're doing something positive and your life's going to change. And then after 3 weeks, the motivation's gone and then the feeling comes back and you're going, oh, actually, the gym hasn't really done work. Right? So then
they sit there for a few months.
Yeah, and they sit there for a few months and they go back and they go, I know what it is, and I'm not getting enough sleep.
Yeah, that's it.
So now all of a sudden they're now getting into a new sleep regime. So now they're going to the gym.
Yeah.
And they're now sleeping, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that doesn't work. And they go, right, I need to change my diet. I need to drink more water.
Yeah.
So now they're drinking loads of more water. They're eating their quinoa. They're having all their pasta. They're doing all this religiously doing their food, and they're telling everybody about how many few pounds and ounces they're losing and eating more fish. And all of a sudden they realise that actually they're now going to the gym. They're now eating their diet. They're now sleeping. But they still feel like crap.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it'll be, well, I need to move home. It's this house.
Yes.
I need to move the house.
Yes.
So now they've moved home and they're at the gym and they just keep doing more and more and more made up stuff until all of a sudden they've now maxed out their income.
Yeah.
They're now skint because they're paying for a gym membership, they're having this really expensive diet, they're spending about £400 a day on water, they've now moved home, they've now changed their car, they've even sacked Derek and bought in Bob, or sacked Sheila and bought in Deirdre because it was him that was causing it.
Yeah.
Their relationship, no, it's you're my problem, I was alright until I met you, and they'll just keep making stuff all the time. But it's those belief systems that actually that are causing the problem, because actually it's the guilt and shames underneath it that are actually causing the problem.
And the belief is something external to us as the problem.
External.
It's never internal. So I had a client, lovely lady. She's a good friend of mine. I saw her yesterday actually, and she's doing really well. But one of her belief systems we cleared a load of stuff out for her. We cleared her pain, we cleared her anxiety, cleared her belly button phobia. We
now that's a good one.
That's
so
a new one.
Shouldn't laugh.
That was a new one. No, she had a belly button phobia.
Yeah.
We toned her up because she lost the bloating really quickly, and her body toned up literally within in days. And loads of things healed up. And then she was come back for a session one day, and I said, oh, what are you doing the weekend? She said, I'm going down to Dorset. Why? Well, I think about moving. Why? Well, I don't feel free where I am. I was like, whoa, stop.
Yeah.
So the key is I don't feel. That's a feeling you have. Anytime you have a feeling, the only way to resolve that is by resolving the feeling, not change something in the external world. Yeah. So I said, look, please, by all means, go to Dorset, have a nice break. But before you make any life-changing decisions, just let me clear that first. And so we did. She came back for the next session. We cleared that. And she then went...
Moved to Hampshire?
Yeah, no. How did you know?
Yeah.
No, she said, I don't need to move now. And she still lives where she was originally. Yeah. And she feels free. Yeah. And we actually had this conversation the other day. She can't remember that feeling of not feeling free. And since she's done that, she's had so many opportunities up for travel, for work abroad, and for doing more things, and she now feels free. Yeah. But before, what she would have done, she would have moved to Dorset and not felt free. Because she was addressing the wrong problem.
Yeah, we're always trying to change things in the environment. We're always trying to change something in our environment or something externally, or learn something new
to change a feeling inside of us.
Or a belief or a behaviour.
Yeah,
that's happening inside.
But the feeling is inside. You must change the feeling inside. The external thing will never ever do that.
It won't work.
It might work temporarily, but it will never work long term, and then you'll crash again.
Yeah, but the only reason it will work temporarily is because of the belief that you think it's going to work, and then you cultivate these fake feelings of it's going to happen and it's going to work out in the end, and then you think, I know I'm going to be all right now, and then all of a sudden, when the realisation comes in and kicks you in the scroties, you're back to feeling really, really crap again, because you're just deluding yourself. You're just making up shit, believing it to distract yourself from it, and we're not knocking you for that, because we all want to get on better, and we don't want to have those feelings or experience those feelings. But the fact of the matter is do something that's going to work for you. Stop spending your money and wasting your time and buying all this YouTube nonsense about beliefs and what you've got to push through the fear, and you've got to get motivated, or you've got to do this practice, or you've got to go and do this, you need to do this 3 times a week. No.
Yeah, no. All of these practices, all these things, we get
just
taught
to sell
to do.
You something.
It's just to sell you something, and it's also designed to. Everyone's trying to do their best, but unfortunately, like I was and like Steve was in the past, when I was telling people what I was doing, it still wasn't actually working for me. I was doing very similar things. I was telling people we need to meditate, we need to think positively and things like this. And these things weren't actually working for me, so I had to find a different way of doing it. I didn't keep doing the same thing. But a lot of people do. And we don't want you to be doing this. That's why we're explaining it to you. So many people do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And that is insanity, as Einstein said. And the only way to solve an internal feeling is to deal with a feeling. However, we both do know that the internal feeling is very, very scary. And that's why you don't really want to go to it. We are so frightened in this day and age of our emotions and the way we feel, we don't touch them because we're scared of what they mean. We're scared of what they're going to do to us. We're scared of how we're going to feel if we go near them. So a lot of the people I see, they've suppressed them all because they either couldn't handle them, they didn't know what they were going to do, they don't know who they're going to be if they bring it up, they don't know how they're going to cope. And they're so frightened of how they feel. And
socially as well, we especially in the very masculine area of sport and also the construction industry, we call it banter. I like to call it banter, you know what I mean? It's banter. Sorry, I don't mean anything by it, it's banter. But what happens is that people are afraid to actually really be themselves and talk about how they feel, because afraid of being mocked, or afraid of being ostracised, or being singled out for all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And actually, even though that's banter between geezers, it's actually causing a lot of people a lot of problems. And we were speaking to a lady who said that actually suicide in the construction industry is at all-time high.
Yes, that's right. But we're frightened of our emotional responses about things. So people are now frightened of expressing an emotional response in public because somebody else might have an emotional response and be offended by it.
Yeah.
This is insanity. If you are offended by something, you are taking it personally. Yeah. That is your emotional response.
Yeah, that's your problem.
That is your response to it. It's your trigger to it. Switch that shit off.
Yeah.
That is causing you a problem.
And everyone else.
And everyone else around you.
Yeah.
It's not... And the person who is now frightened to be themselves, they're now frightened to actually express themselves and say how they really feel about things. Don't get me wrong, there are different levels of that, and there are extremes if someone is being genuinely offensive. But most of the things these days that we find that people find offensive, there's nothing to take offence at. It's just someone explaining something. And it's just someone expressing how they feel or the way they think about something, and we often take offence at that. But that is just your response. And we're so frightened of how we feel, and we never look at how we actually feel, so we end up blaming the other person, saying it's their fault.
Yeah,
we never look at
outside world
what our response is and go, well, how am I actually feeling? Now, I'll give you an example. I had this of a situation recently, and I had a situation with a friend of mine, and I'd upset him, he'd upset me, and it doesn't seem like a way to resolve it. But what I did was I looked at what I was actually feeling. I looked at what I was feeling in me, not about the situation or the person, but in me, what I was actually feeling.
What was your response?
What was my response? And I worked out, I was actually feeling a little bit jealous about the scenario because he actually they both have something that I want. They have an amazing love, and I want that in my future. I was a bit jealous of that, and I was feeling a little bit inferior as well because everyone likes this guy. He's such a nice guy, and everyone gets on with him really well. So I was thinking, why am I not able to get on with this person? And that was all about me. It was not. Once I went to that, a lot of the anger and the frustration dissipated. Yeah. A lot of the thing that I was taking personally just vanished. So it was about me. It was my response was how I was feeling about me, and that's what it always is in any situation. Yeah. It is always how we are taking it personally, and that is the biggest problem. And the problem of the world today is everyone takes everything personally, which is just ridiculous, and the world's just gone completely potty with that. Yeah. But you don't have to be that way. You can let that go. And when you do, your life is happier, more healthy, more joyful.
Free, calm, relaxed. And I can tell that factually for myself. I'm just so at peace. I'm such a peaceful person, a happy, smiley person. But it's only because I had to go back and change all that stuff.
Change how you're feeling, what you're believing. And literally everything is a belief. I hear beliefs people all day long, people's belief systems, and they don't know it's a belief. They believe it's a fact.
Yeah. But if you're watching the news, it is a fact.
Yes. And if you're told by a doctor, it's a fact as well.
Yeah. And newspapers.
And if everything's a fact these days. Yeah. And I see so many people suffering in pain or anxiety, and they're believing something, and that belief is just not true, and that's stopping them from finding the problem. Well, I was going to go back to I follow some of the mental health groups, and I put a post on there the other day because someone was talking about that he was in such a bad way of anxiety, and I said, well, if you've really got a problem with anxiety that bad and you want to heal it, go and listen to my podcast. So I posted my podcast details on the Inside Out Effect website. So go and listen to the podcast, right? Yeah. Then I had another lady underneath turn around and say, accuse me of talking absolute nonsense, and that there is no cure for depression and anxiety. It is a disease, and management is the only option, in big capital letters. Yes. Now, while we understand where that lady's coming from, the problem is that we've actually switched off anxiety and depression with people, and we've done it in ourselves.
Yes.
So which one is true? You have to look at what's actually happened, not just a belief system. This lady has obviously never experienced it being switched off. She doesn't know anybody, and she's been taught that's a fact. But in this day and age, it's not a fact, because if one person can do it, other people can do it. And one of the biggest beliefs that people have is, well, we're all different.
Yeah, we're all different.
And that is not true. Our personalities and our characteristics are different, but in my 20 years experience, if you're suffering in chronic pain or anxiety and depression, the same thing causes it in everybody. Not traditionally, no, but traditionally you can't fix it. But if you look at it at a very specific thing causes it, it is always that cause. And there is always the same cause for everybody, and I treat it the same way every single time. When people come to me in chronic pain, there are 3 causes of pain, and that's it.
Yeah.
Chronic stress, poor flexibility, poor movement. Everything else that you've been told or you believe is just a symptom. Those are the only 3 causes. Yeah. So when people come to me and they go, oh, it's my pillow, oh, it's arthritis, oh, it's because I had a car accident 5 years ago. No, it's poor chronic stress, poor movement, and poor flexibility. When I address one of those 3 things, it goes. When people come to me with anxiety, they go, "Oh, I'm anxious because this happened." Because of this, that, and the other.
I know. I get this one as well.
No, it's because you're feeling attacked or powerless.
That's it.
And if you just address that, the anxiety will go. Yeah. That's all you have to address. Yeah. People are not different. The reason it's not different is because you're going into fight and flight. And fight and flight is a biological response. And all biological responses are the same. Yeah. Now, the emotions you feel about it when you go into it, they might be different, but that's irrelevant. At the moment, you're going into the biological response, and that's what me and Steve switch off. Yes. The biological response. Yeah. And it's biology. It's a biological response in your body, so it's going to be the same. We're not talking about your characteristics. We're not talking about your personality, although it does affect those things. we're saying that it's biological in nature, so it's always going to be the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, also the thing is that we turn off the biological response, but we also turn off the learnings and beliefs associated to it.
That's
because
right.
they're all made up in the instance that aren't even true either.
You make them up.
And then therefore, what actually happens is your personality improves.
Yes, you become
You
become
become a better person because you switch
kinder.
off all of the nonsense beliefs that are made up around the anxiety.
Yeah.
We're getting there, but I mean, the proof of the pudding is that girl on my sofa before it even started felt powerless. I switched it off. She was anxious in tears. Oh, I'm scared. I feel powerless. Switched it off. Then she was, oh, it's gone. There you go. There's proof of the pudding.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. I used to be I never really liked people when I was young, if I'm honest. I used to entertain them all the time being a magician, but I never really liked people. And the more I switch off, the more I actually really, really like people. And the more I attract nice people to me. When I didn't like people, I attracted negative people to me. Not big things, just small little situations. Yeah. And now I've started liking people. I was in the spa the other day with a friend, and this couple just walked in, and they didn't have a pound full of lockers. And usually I've just completely ignored it, but I didn't. I just flicked him a pound, said, there you go, mate, have that. And he went, oh, how am I going to pay you back? And I said, it's all right, don't worry, a pound's okay, it's fine. And I smiled, I had a nice interaction with them. Whereas in the past, I would never have done something like that. Because I just never liked people. I was frightened of them. My dad actually made me fearful of people. Yeah. He actually made me believe that, oh, everyone's bad and out to get you, and, oh, these people are that and these people are that. And so I grew up with this belief that people are not safe, they're not nice. And so I carried that into my adult world.
Yeah, it's funny that.
And I then started attracting that more and more.
Yeah.
Was now, as I switch more things off, the more I switch off, the more I see good people.
Yeah, I say this all the time. When I go out my front door,
yeah,
the sun's shining.
Yeah.
I go down into the town on my bike, and I said this in another podcast, and everybody's sitting in the patios, having their coffees, holding doors open for each other, queuing up nicely in Tesco's for their vegetables, all having a conversation. There'll be black people, white people, Chinese people, Asian people, all mingling, all talking, and they're all going about their day, and they're all smiling. Some people are looking rather miserable, and they're all going about their thing. Yeah. I don't see people running into shops, stabbing people, running in, stealing things, causing problems, all this hoo-ha, all this bad stuff going on in the world, which we're led to believe. Hear that word, believe. My experience is not that.
It's not that, no.
And all the people I meet, generally, are nice, caring, kind people. Even the ones that do have a little bit of an issue about them. Deep down underneath,
they're loving, kind.
They're loving, kind people. And the reason
people.
why they're behaving that way is because they've got guilt and shames.
That's right, yeah.
And I know that anyway. But as a rule, you go out in your world tomorrow and you tell me if you actually see what you read in the newspapers or see in the TV, and if so, get back to me. It might be different in some of the inner cities because obviously it's a bit different, but generally as a rule, you don't experience what you're told to believe, and so that ultimately then drives your beliefs, drives your behaviours. You're going to behave in that way, and that's a big problem for us.
But a lot of time, people who do attract a lot of that to them, it is the belief that's attracting and drawing it into your world. And I know it's very hard to believe with some people, and that's a really big concept to grasp. So we understand it's a big concept, and if you're in it, you're going to probably completely disagree with us. Yeah. The problem is we've switched things off for that with people, and their reality has changed.
Yeah, completely.
And I've switched off Steve's reality. Steve did.
You switched off my reality, man. I don't even know where I am.
Switched off his past reality, and so now he does attract nice people, and me too.
Yeah.
And I'll give it an example. The problem is we're all taught in this world that we're not very powerful. We're taught that we have no power or anything, and a lot of people are in fear over things. And I'll give you an example. One of my clients, she had a problem a few months back because she was destined to go somewhere. She had a retreat booked somewhere. I don't know where it was. And at that particular time, the airline had recalled all of their planes because there was something dangerous on them. And now my client did have a fear of flying. We actually switched it off for her. But of course, this event sort of brought it back a little bit. She wasn't frightened. She was like, well, I shouldn't go. And I said, well, I actually said to her, how are you creating this? And she went, I'm not creating. I'm not in control of airplanes and the government and the airport and things. I can't control that. I said, I get that, but how are you creating yourself being blocked to doing this retreat? Because she was confused now about whether she should do the retreat.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, we shouldn't go. We shouldn't do this. And I was feeling bad about it anyway. And I said, well, let's just look.
Feeling bad about it anyway.
She was confused about it anyway.
Yeah.
And I said, well, and we're sitting in the garden, and she was very, even though I'd switched off a lot of things for her, and she had a very open mind, she was really stuck on this. because in her head this situation could not be changed, and there's no way she'd be creating this problem. So I said, look, just think, put the airline bit aside for a second. What underneath it? What are you really feeling about doing this event? What's the guilt and shame? And she went through it, and I don't actually think we switched anything off. I can't remember. But I saw her the other day, and she'd been dying to tell me what happened. Literally, the next day, something had flipped from the conversation. Something had flipped in her brain. She'd made a decision, and she'd gone and done something else. And literally, the next day, the airlines came on and said, "It's totally safe now. It's fine." Literally in 24 hours, and before that, they were not. It was going to be ages. They were not going to take them off. Nothing. It was too dangerous. And all of a sudden, it changed within hours. Yeah. Now, if they, whatever was in her way, she removed it by taking the right action that day when we spoke, and then literally a few hours later, it changed. Yeah. And that happens constantly.
It does for all my clients.
It happens all the time, and even with big things like that, it happens constantly.
Do you know what all the naysayers are going? Well, it's just coincidence,
wasn't it?
That's what they say all the time. Well, it's coincidence.
But the universe is rarely so lazy.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
And the thing is, you can say that's coincidence, and that's great, but we see it constantly with our clients every single day.
And it always happens when we clear something.
And it always happens. Yeah, as soon as we clear something, the universe moves, and whatever was blocking them suddenly is unblocked. And now it's not a problem any longer because you are literally creating your blocks. Whatever it may be, you're drawing it into the environment. Yeah. So, and the biggest thing, as we said, is sabotage. So that's what we want to hone into you guys today, that if you're blocked or you're stuck, you're probably sabotaging yourself, and guilt and shame is the biggest response that's causing the problem.
Great. So I think that's been a very good podcast.
We're getting a lot of people challenges on that one today, aren't we?
Good, because I think people really need to start looking at their reality and looking at the things that are stopping them and blocking them. Everybody, we're here to give you advice to help you have a better life, and for you to expand, and by making your whole emotional experience of life better as well. And these are the key things, and we know this because it works for us time and time and time again with everyone. So anyway, that's been a really good podcast, like I said. So I think we're going to leave it there for today. Yep. Obviously, we've launched the website now, inside-out-effectpodcast.co.uk. That's specifically if you want to get in touch with myself and Jonathan, and if you have a business that would like us to come in and work on your behalf to help and solve the issues that you have with your board of directors or your staff in general. So we're now starting to push that, and we've got a few events coming up where we're pushing that. Jonathan, you've got your website, which is decodingpain.com.
Yes.
And you specialise in the emotional stuff and the chronic pain as well.
I work specifically with chronic painful conditions, physical painful conditions, but I treat lots of different problems. Chronic pain, anxiety, depression, and lots of other problems because of the way I look at things. Yeah,
great. Or you can get in touch with myself as well. My website's healingthemind.co.uk. I'm a specialist in dealing with anything from depression, anxiety, trauma, PTSD, or even if your life is you're just generally stuck in life and you don't know where you're going, what direction you're going. I'm getting quite a lot of that at the moment, or stuff from your past you're struggling with. I can help you literally switch that off and get rid of it for you. And we've got our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/inside-out-effect.
Great,
I believe.
Perfect.
So we're going to be off. We did put out a sort of a poll really for what we were going to do for the next podcast, and we've sort of done this one ourselves because we thought it was pertinent right now, but we've had a few suggestions come in over the last. We've had quite a lot of suggestions actually, and I think we're going to be taking one of them. So
I think probably OCD.
Next. Okay, yeah.
OCD.
So good. I'm glad you said that because I'm sort of swinging towards that as well because I know a lot of people have,
and it creates a lot of anxiety as well. OCD. So.
Oh, okay. So we're going to get a double bubble with that one.
Yeah.
Great. So anyway, so if you know anyone who has OCD or if you have it yourself, tune in to our next podcast next week where we'll be discussing in detail OCD, what causes it, what the solution is to solve it,
and how to change it. Yes,
and how to change it. So anyway, so thanks ever so much for listening. We really appreciate you tuning in to us. Please like, please share, and please get the message out to anybody that you think you can help with our podcast. So from me, it's Stephen Jakes. I'm wishing you a really good bank holiday weekend, and to you, Jonathan,
have a lovely weekend, guys. Enjoy the sunshine, enjoy the summer. Keep smiling, stay healthy, stay happy, and we'll speak to you next time.
Speak to you next week. Goodbye.